evening, folks. You are very welcome to Bandido Swings. The Bandido is back in the car again, which can mean only one thing. He's just fresh from coming off the court, fresh from his hit this morning. And a fine hit it was indeed. Folks, we had episode 1 last week, and I was giving you a little bit of backdrop to where my interest in tennis came from, what I was looking to achieve in the next few weeks. Of course, it's called Bandido Swings, but what kind of swing is the Bandido really trying to improve? It's of course his serve. So folks, we were back out on court again today, and it was a really good hit. I looked at last week's footage. We're going to talk all about it, folks, after I show you this week's footage. I've actually got a bit more footage this week. We've got 3 return games and 3 service games. More editing for me to do. Holy fuck, last week, I only realised, or was it 2 weeks ago? I can't even remember. The last time I did this episode 1, the amount of editing you need to do for a tennis video. I did underestimate just how much work goes into cutting all the different clips. So I've got all that to look forward to. But we've got more footage this week. 3 return games, 3 service games. I'm not going to do too much blabbering right now. I'm going to leave you with the footage, and we're going to talk all about it. We're going to talk about what I was looking to improve upon, having analysed last week's footage, and what I'm going to try and do going forward. So anyway, enough rambling from the Bandido. I'm going to leave you with the footage, and then we talk all about it in the next few minutes. folks, so there you go. There's the footage for this week. 3 return games, 3 service games. It was a really good hit today. Lots of rallies. Holy fuck, I was sweaty. Sweaty coming off court. That's a good sign though. And, you know, I have to say, when I looked at last week's footage, let's just talk about last week's hit and what I learned from it. So, when I looked back at the serve, there were 3 things. 3 things that came to my mind, having analysed the footage, and in particular, what my service motion looked like. So all in all, I was pretty happy, given the fact that it was the first time that I had actually used that serve technique, that service motion out on court. I said last week that I was sort of practicing the serve in my back garden. I wasn't actually hitting the ball, but I was just practicing the motion. And when I looked at last week's footage, I was pleasantly surprised. It wasn't too bad, but there were definitely things that caught my attention that I thought, I really want to try and do a better job this week. There were 3 things in particular when I looked at last week's footage with regards to the serve. So the first thing was my tossing arm. The arm wasn't straight enough and it wasn't vertical enough. So whenever I was tossing the ball, I was tossing it pretty much like this. So my arm was going out at an angle. I wanted to get the arm more vertical. That was the first thing I noticed. My toss arm was too much of an angle. I wasn't guiding the ball up enough. So that was one thing. I want to straighten out my tossing arm. The second thing was, I felt like the ball toss was too short. So I felt like I was maybe rushing the backswing a little bit. So I wanted to have the ball toss just give me a little more time. Instead of rushing my backswing, give myself a little more time to actually pull the racket back and then come through the ball without rushing so much. So that was the second thing. And the third thing that I noticed last week that just jumped out at me was I didn't feel like I was putting enough of my body through the serve. So I didn't feel as if I was actually creating enough momentum going forward. I felt like I was pulling off the serve a bit. Now, perhaps that was just due to maybe not enough confidence in the motion. So I had a look at that and thought, this week I really want to throw my body forward more, commit a bit more to the motion going forward. Once I've thrown the ball up and I'm going forward to hit the serve, I want to, a little bit like Andy Murray, actually. That's who came to my mind. When I looked at the footage last week, I thought, you know what? How about I take a little bit of Andy Murray's approach whenever he actually makes contact with the ball. If you watch Andy Murray's serve, he really throws himself into it. That's what I feel anyway, just from my own perspective. When Murray makes contact at the top with the racket and the ball, at the top of the service swing, we could say, I feel like Murray really pushes his weight through the serve. He really commits to it. And you can almost see he like throws himself forward into the court. So I wanted to do more of that as well. I wanted to create a bit more, I'm going to try and use the best terms that I have here to describe this, but a bit more forward momentum. And I feel like the way to get that is to just commit more to the serve. Throw myself forward a bit more instead of what I'm sort of doing at the moment, based on last week's footage, was I'm sort of laying off the serve a bit. I'm not quite committing, not quite putting all my weight through the serve. So those were the 3 things today that I wanted to focus on. Now look, there's a shit ton more stuff that I could be doing that I'm currently not doing on my serve, but I want to just keep it simple. So those 3 things, last week, when I looked at the footage, those were the 3 things that jumped out at me. The first thing was to get my tossing arm more vertical. So more like this instead of like this. I'm sort of at an angle at the moment. By the time I let go of the ball, my tossing arm is at an angle. I want to get that more vertical because I'm hoping that's going to sort of pull my body back into shape again and almost create like a slingshot effect. You know the way when you go to use a slingshot, you pull it back and you're almost cocking the sling, creating all of this, you're generating all of this, I don't know how to exactly explain it, but all of this potential energy, we could say, by bringing the sling back. And then once you let go, the sling just, you've generated all of this potential energy that upon release creates more force going forward. More power, we could say, whenever you release the slingshot. So I'm hoping that by getting my ball toss arm more vertical, so instead of like this, more like this, that it's going to actually straighten me up a bit on the serve and sort of generate a bunch of potential energy in my body, so that whenever I throw myself forward, I'm releasing more energy going forward. I'm using more of my body and less of my shoulder, essentially, because in the past, I've used far too much of my shoulder when I've been serving. I want to get that ball toss arm more vertical so that I pull myself back, and then, just like the slingshot, once I release and make contact with the ball, I'm bringing with me all of this potential energy that's then realized. So that's the first thing. Ball toss arm, more vertical. Second thing, ball toss a little bit higher, just to give me more time with the backswing, so that I'm not rushing the backswing. I feel like I was rushing a little bit last week. And then the final thing was, what was the final thing? I've already forgotten the final thing. What was that? Straighter arm, more vertical ball toss arm, higher ball toss in general. Oh yes, and then commit more to the forward motion, just like Andy Murray. So when Murray swings through the ball, he really allows his body to move through the ball and actually through the court as well. Now that will perhaps be helped by getting my ball toss arm more vertical. But the general idea, point number 3 here, is for me to actually commit to move my weight through the swing more, to be more confident in moving that weight forward into the court. Okay, so I haven't actually seen the footage yet. I'm going to look at it later. I'm currently on my way home. What did I feel like today? Let's talk about feelings. It felt better. I do feel like it was better today. There were still a few double faults, that's true. But I don't feel like too many serves were getting dumped into the net. Most of my serves were going long. And I would much rather the serve go long than it to go into the net. I hate whenever I hit serves sort of midway into the net. That pisses me off. So today it felt as if more of the serves, when they did go out, or when I did miss my serve, it was more missing the serve long rather than into the net, which I'll take. I'll take that. So I felt as if, now I'll need to watch the footage back, I could be wrong here, but it felt like I was getting the service arm a little straighter. I think I could do better though. I felt like as I started to fatigue a little bit, I started to slip into the old habit again. So I think there was a little bit of an improvement in terms of straightening out the tossing arm, but I think there's a lot more potential there. I think I can commit a bit more to getting a bit more of a vertical position on the toss arm, but it was a little bit better. It felt a little bit better. What else? I felt like the ball toss was poor. That would be the weakest point today. I felt as if I didn't quite give myself enough room for the backswing. So, you know, I felt like I made a little bit of an improvement in terms of how vertical my tossing arm was. A little bit of an improvement, but sort of reverting back to old habits. The ball toss was poor. I felt like I needed to give myself more space on the backswing. That was my gut feeling on that. But I'll tell you what I was really happy with today. Of the 3 things, the commitment to the serve going forward, the forward momentum, the allowing my weight to move through the serve, That was a lot better today. I felt a lot better with that. I have to admit, that felt good. I felt like I was a little looser on the serve. I felt like I was less tense. And I felt a little bit more confident to actually commit and allow my weight to move forward into the court at point of contact. Now, I feel like had I allowed the ball toss to be a little higher, it would have been better still. And again, if I could get my tossing arm a little more vertical, then I feel like I would be storing more potential energy to then be released. But that's what I was most happy with today, from a feel perspective. I felt like I was moving through the court on the serve a lot better. I felt like I committed more. I felt like I allowed my weight to move through the serve. And I felt like I was less tense. I felt like there was more looseness in my swing. I even felt like times like whenever I swung, whenever I made contact with the ball, it felt like this here arm, the tossing arm, was like coming back through again. It was just so loose. I wasn't as tight today, not as tense. So that's, again, from a feel perspective, I felt like, just to recap, I felt like the degree to which my tossing arm was more vertical was okay. There was a little bit of improvement there. But I think when I watch the footage, I'm going to be a little disappointed with that. I feel like there's still far more... I still feel like I'm releasing the ball at too much of an angle. I still feel that when I release the ball, my arm's like this instead of like this. At the point of release, I still feel like I'm at this angle. And I want to get it more up here so that I bring the body back, just like the slingshot. So I'm pulling back the body and getting ready to release all of this extra stored potential in terms of energy. So that was sort of average. Didn't feel like I got the most out of that aspect today. Ball toss, as I've said, that was probably the most disappointing aspect of the serve today. Just from a feel perspective, I felt like I could have had that ball toss a little bit higher. I did feel a little bit rushed at times today on the backswing. But big positive, big improvement, I feel, was my commitment to the swing. So even though the other two elements weren't quite as good as I would like them to be from a feel perspective, I felt like I was looser, I felt like I committed more to the swing, and I felt like I was allowing my weight to move through the swing. Whatever stored potential energy I had, I was allowing it to move more effortlessly through my swing today. And that was good. I was very happy with that. Because I felt like I was, even with that alone, I felt like I was generating more power. And also, I felt like there was a little bit more consistency in the serve too today. There were still double faults, but a little bit more consistency and more power. So that's what I was most happy with today. That's my analysis. What about the rest of the game? So that's the serve. What about the rest of the game? Boy, I was hitting the backhand well today. Holy fuck, I tell you, the backhand was really on form today. It felt like I only made one unforced error. And I actually think I got the only unforced error on camera. It was in I think it was on one of the return games. So I basically made no errors off my backhand today. I was really swinging loosely through the backhand. It was really, really on point today. And the forehand as well. A few more errors off the forehand, but not too many. And there were some very awkward short balls today. So, especially on the forehand side. And I felt like I dealt with the short ball on the forehand really well. Because that can be a tricky shot. I find the short ball on my backhand easier because the backhand swing is shorter. The short ball on the forehand, I really need to get that racket back. I need to get good preparation, and I really need to bring the swing through. So I was really happy in particular with my short ball on the forehand side. Movement was terrific. I really felt good out there. really felt good. I could have went for another 30 minutes before we got kicked off. I think we played for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So the rest of the game, I was really happy with the rest of the game. I felt like I was returning consistently, not too many errors off the return of serve, maybe just a few, but not too many, swinging through the ball well. So apart from the serve, the rest of the game's in really good shape, really happy. Again, from a field perspective, and even last week, analysing last week's footage, I was really happy with the rest of the game, the overall game from the baseline. And today felt even better. I felt like I had a few more winners, and I felt looser. And maybe that, to be honest, folks, you know, what I'm starting to learn here is the more comfortable I get with my serve, the looser the rest of my game is. And I don't mean loose from a careless standpoint. I just mean the less tension there is in my body. I felt, compared to last week, I felt a little more confident on my serve this week. As I've said already, I felt like the biggest improvement was moving my weight through the swing and committing to the contact more, committing more to the swing once I've made contact with the ball. And you know, just that alone, I could even feel that the rest of my game was a little less restricted, a little less tense. I really felt like I was swinging well from the back of the court. And even my overhead at times can be, you know, anybody who's into tennis knows that Djokovic has an average overhead. The weakest shot in Novak Djokovic's game is his overhead. And I've got a very inconsistent overhead. There was a stage today where there was an overhead and I just nailed it. I think it was on one of the return games. I was coming into net and I just clinically put the ball away. And that's that's a good sign for me. If I'm approaching the net and really, you know, sticking my volleys, and although I didn't have too many volleys today, but putting away the overhead with confidence, that tells me that there's not a lot of tension in my body and that I'm quite loose and swinging freely. So there we go. There's the post-practice analysis. Pretty happy. Happy with the overall game. I've already outlined the 3 things at the moment that I'm really trying to hone in on the serve. Let me know down in the comments if you've made it that far or this far in the video. Let me know what you think. When you look at my serve, do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you agree with my own analysis of the serve? Am I overlooking something else? Perhaps I am. Maybe I'm overlooking something else that could give me more bang for my buck. But those are the 3 things at the moment that I'm really focusing on with my serve. Straightening out my ball toss arm, making it more vertical instead of releasing the ball at an angle. Number 2, getting the ball toss higher so that my backswing is not as rushed. And then number 3, having more momentum through the serve, transferring my weight through the serve, committing through the serve. So let me know down in the comments, am I overlooking anything here? Are there other things that I could perhaps take a look at and that they may actually, you know, significantly or meaningfully contribute to getting this serve a little better? But anyway, that's the show today, folks. Bandido Swings, Journey to a Better Serve, episode 2. Let me know your thoughts down below, folks. Let me know your thoughts about the serve, about my general game. If there are other things in my game that you think could be improved upon, let me know down there. Folks, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm coasting here on the motorway, very relaxed, 1 hour and 15 minutes. The legs are dinging. I can feel the legs. They have definitely been well worked, that's for sure. I'm going to enjoy my journey home. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. And with that said, it is over and out this week on Bandido Swings from the Bandido.